Dubious ones, welcome back to the channel for some more Marvel Rivals. Today, I'm going to give you my top 10 wish list for characters I want to see come to Marvel Rivals in no specific order, but I'm giving you my top 10 of who I desperately want to see come to this wonderful game. So let's get right into it. So, for those unfamiliar, I am a bit of a Marvel Rivals aficionado, as I was very fortunate to play the demo, and I do have some positives, some negatives, mostly positives about this game. The only negatives I really have is the limited maps, the lack of maps, and which we are getting rectified when the game's coming on release. We're getting more maps. But as far as the heroes felt, they didn't all feel perfect, but they felt pretty good. And I want to get into some of the characters that I want to see come to this game, because I feel like this game's done really good justice to the majority of our characters. I didn't love everybody, but sometimes it's a skill issue. Sometimes I don't like personally playing a tank. So maybe I like Groot as a tank better than I like Magneto as a tank, even though I like Magneto better as a character. Just to give you an example. But let's go take a look-see over at my list of some of the characters. Now, number one, you're not going to be able to look away, because you know what? It's my boy Gambit. It's my boy Gambit from the X-Men. My probably top 3, top 5 favorite characters in all of X-Men. In any iteration, you look at him from the comics, different artwork here. Shout out to anyone who made these art. All I did was type in Gambit and, into Google. So shout out to anyone who made the beautiful art in these shots here. But I'm telling you, Gambit is by far one of my favorite characters in all of X-Men. And if you're familiar with the Disney X-Men reboot of the 90s cartoon that I grew up on, X-Men 97, but a huge fan. You've seen me cover it here on the channel with my daughter, getting her opinions on it as a new viewer to X-Men, as well as my opinions on it as a big fan, lifetime fan of the X-Men and the X-Men cartoon. We're just looking at different variations of Gambit here. But one thing I want you to see from X-Men 97 that really is like how can you not want this guy in your game when you see this? Just look at this.
Gambit, see your bet and raise it.
Gambit raises you, man. Yeah, this man goes all in. He goes all in right up in the first season. In the first frickin' season, this man goes all in.
Mutant intruder neutralized.
Is he? Is he neutralized? The name's Gambit, mon ami. And don't you forget it. Don't you forget it.
Remember it.
Remember it. Yes. How do you not see Gambit sacrifice himself in that scene? And tell me, this man, he was not done justice. He was not done justice in the Gambit and Wolverine movie. He was not. He's one of the greatest and strongest mutants in all of X-Men and best characters in all of Marvel. He was done justice quite well in Marvel versus or maybe it was Street Fighter versus X-Men. And then Marvel versus Capcom 2, you got him again. I don't know if he was in Marvel versus Capcom 1. But all the Marvel games that he was in, the Royal Flush. He was a fun character. But this man definitely needs a spot in this game, and he needs to be done justice. And I love that this game is going to have so many alternate attires for characters because they're going to be selling skins. But I really, really hope that they do this character justice because Gambit is one of my by far favorite characters in all of Marvel, and I cannot wait to see him come to this game. He'll be here eventually. I have no news. I have no nothing. This is my wish list. This is who I want to see come to the game. I want to see them come to the game immediately. Now, next on the list, not surprising, you got the old leader of the X-Men. You've got Cyclops. How can you say no? How can you say no to this guy? Optic Blast, Optic Blast, Optic Blast. If anyone who's played Marvel vs. Capcom or any of the variations of that game, you know what I'm talking about. Forget the movies. The movies, ooh, they did them so dirty. But the old Marvel games, Optic Blast, they did him so much justice. Cyclops is so iconic. Definitely my number 2 pick here. Again, not in any specific order for these 10, but I'm putting Cyclops at number 2 because I think he would be such a great fit to this game. And I think he would make an amazing sniper. We have Hawkeye coming to the game as a great sniper. I would love to see Cyclops come to the game as a defensive sniper with great, close-up abilities, be a DPS character. I'd love to see him as a DPS and love to see him come as a sniper alternative to, say, your Hawkeye. Because we don't have a whole lot of snipers in this game as it is right now. Hawkeye is an amazing addition. I've seen the gameplay. He looks great. He's going to be incredible. I want to see Cyclops come to this game and give him a run for his money. I do. Tell me I'm wrong. Who doesn't love Cyclops? Let me know in the comments down below. Oh, and if you guys have not already, and if you're new to the channel, please smash that subscribe button. Because guess who's coming up next? You've already got Magneto in the game. Boom, bam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I want to see Wolverine. I want to see some Wolverine in this game. Now, I don't know how I want to see him. Because he could very easily be a tank. Healer. I mean, he's a self-healer. So you could do something with him in the game as a healer. But I mean, I think you got to go DPS. You got to go DPS. And we got to go look at the old school Wolverine, baby. Wolverine. Get rid of the old school. Let's see classic. Classic Wolverine. Classic Wolverine. I can't wait to see the many iterations. Think about it. This costume is so iconic. So is this one. With and without the faceplate. Think about the variations. How much money are they going to make on this character? You got the classic 90s. You're going to make so much money on this character just based on costumes alone because this game is making money on costumes, right? It's free to play. It's free to play. So we're going to get so many variations of characters. Who doesn't want Wolverine? You have team-ups with the Hulk. As far as because they have in-game team-up characters. You can team up with the Hulk. Obviously team them up with other X-Men when you release more of them. You don't necessarily need to tag them to Magneto or Wolverine or Storm right away. But you're going to have so many beautiful variations of this game. Sorry, I was going on classic only there. But you're going to get so many variations of the costume of this game that they could sell so many skins. We know we're getting Wolverine. I mean, there's not even a question. I don't even know why I put it in this list because we already know we're going to get it. So let's move on to the next one. The next one, Iceman. Okay, let's go X-Men Iceman if I had to specify. But Iceman. Ice beam, ice beam, ice beam. Do you remember that? Do you remember that from the Marvel games? Iceman's had very different iterations in his look, for sure. I'm not crazy about these iterations. I personally like the one on the left, or similar to that. I like the ones we got from the Marvel games. X-Men versus Street Fighter in the X-Men games. The old fighters in the 90s and the 2000s, the old arcade games. Or from the old 90s cartoon. I really like the iteration we got from the 90s cartoon. I just didn't like that we only got one episode on him. I think he's one of the strongest characters. I hated him in the movies. Absolutely hated him in the movies and did not think they did him justice in any way, shape, or form because he is an Omega level mutant. Same as Gambit. Same as Magneto. Same as Phoenix or Jean Grey. Cyclops. He's an Omega level mutant. He's one of the strongest. Same as Storm. This was from the X-Men series. This iteration right here. Boom. That was like probably my favorite look when he's not in the Iceman gear. But my God, I don't think this did him justice. Wasn't a fan of this. This is okay. It was, again, X-Men in the cartoon of the 90s really did this stuff justice. This looks fantastic. On the left, again, from the cartoon from the 90s on the left here, Iceman, again, I think will be an amazing character. And look what you have to work with. You have so many costumes. Because I'm telling you, if you give me an ugly kind of like this guy for launch, and I have to pay for this guy, or maybe not that guy, but like if I have to pay for a better looking, you might get me on the skin. You might get me on the skin because I don't want this weird spiky haired guy. I prefer the bald Silver Surfer looking guy. Personally. Anyways, this, no bueno. Not what I'm looking for. Didn't like what they did with him in the movies. For me, Iceman, one of my favorite Marvel characters by far. Really want to see him in this game, but I want to see him done justice. I don't want to see the X-Men version of him. I'd like to see this version of him or something better. Like this looks great. Again, not crazy about the spiky hair. Anyways, dubious ones. Follow me on to the next one. Ice Beam, Ice Tack. Anyways, we're going, if you followed me and you were a fan of the Marvel versus Capcom series and that whole series of games, you're going to understand where I'm going next. Or even if you just watched the old X-Men cartoon from the 90s, one of the greatest villains ever. Omega Red. Omega Red needs to come to this game. If you played Marvel vs. Capcom or any of the variations, you remember this character. Because he was really, really good. He was fun. He was badass. He's fun to use. Almost every art we have of him is pretty badass, if you ask me. How do you not want this character in the game? I think Omega Red would be an amazing villain to add to this game. I really love him. I love his story with Wolverine. I loved him in the Marvel vs. Capcom games. Who doesn't love Omega Red? How can you say no to this character? Definitely in my list. Now, my final actual mutant X-Men characters. Well, this one isn't even a mutant. I already ruined it. But my next X-Men reveal favorite character that I want to see in this game is the Juggernaut, baby. It's the Juggernaut. Who does not want to see Juggernaut as a tank in this game? Maybe not this version, but you could sell this version. You can still sell it as a skin. You can still sell it as a skin, but give me the Juggernaut. Oh my goodness. What a tank the Juggernaut would be. So many things you can do with him. He was fun in the Marvel vs. games. Oh my goodness. I want to see the Juggernaut invade Marvel Rivals. What a badass villain. What a fun character. One of the best villains in my opinion, in all of Marvel. Obviously, we're very X-Men sided here for our excitement and for for our wish list here. But I mean, I definitely don't think the Deadpool movies did Juggernaut justice, nor do I think he's ever been done justice in any movie. But we've got some very, very, very cool. Shout out to Colossus, not on the list, but definitely an honorable mention. But Juggernaut, man, I think, so cool in the comic books, as well as in the '90s cartoon, as well as many other cartoons. But the '90s cartoons, what I grew up on. That's why I love X-Men '97 so much. But man, Juggernaut seems to be teamed up with Colossus a lot. So again, big shout out to Colossus. Not on the list, but an honorable mention. But I would love to see this man as a tank in Marvel Rivals. Now, who else? The merchandise seller. You've got Deadpool. How is this guy not already in the game? How is Deadpool not already in the game? Come on. Most of this isn't even like cartoon. I have to literally click on art to get like art for Deadpool. You see what I'm saying? Like, this man is so in the foreground for Marvel. This is your billionaire, like your $1 billion seller, like amongst terrible movies and movies that aren't selling well. This man sells like $1 billion worth of movies. How is Deadpool not already in the game? Like, Deadpool isn't even one of my favorite Marvel characters. I like the movies. I love the movies. But he wasn't one of my favorite characters growing up or anything. I just think, like, how can you leave Deadpool out? How can you possibly leave Deadpool out of this game? Same thing with Wolverine. Like, Wolverine's big, but, like, Wolverine was big years ago. I can understand this game was in development more recently than the Fox series of X-Men movies. Maybe you're a little bit separated from that. But you're not separated from Deadpool. And now Deadpool brought back Wolverine and Gambit, you know, in his new movies. But, like, how do you leave this guy out? How is Deadpool not in your game already? So, definitely, Deadpool is going to be an amazingly fun character. Clearly, I think a DPS, but you could use him as a healer, because, again, he can regenerate and stuff. That's the same thing with Wolverine. I don't know, like, you could put them as a healer, but do you heal other people? Like, you're not really a healer if you're not healing other people, so you gotta have stuff to do that. But, like, the fact that they can regen themselves, so I don't know how you're gonna work it. I don't really care. Just put them in the game. Make it work. Anetti seems to be pretty good about making heroes. But I'm saying Deadpool, definitely in my top 10 picks of characters that should have maybe not already been in the game, but definitely, I think, will be coming soon. Next up, we're getting away from the Marvel Universe. Or, sorry, not the Marvel Universe. The X-Men Universe. We're going to move away from X-Men. Carnage. I mean, what else do you say? My apologies. But what else do you say? One of the most iconic villains in all of Marvel. They've done him dirty. They did him a little dirty in that most recent movie. But my goodness. Growing up for me, Carnage was the be-all, end-all boss of symbiotes. He was the badass. He was the be-all, end-all villain for Spider-Man beyond Venom, where Venom became a good guy. But the movie, I don't think really did him justice. But how can you deny Carnage? He is so badass. He sells merch. Costumes, okay, I can understand. Maybe you have to work with something like this as an alternate costume for Carnage. Because I don't know how many alternate symbiote suits you have. Like Venom, they did a different color. You do a different variation of red for Carnage. So I can understand from a monetary point of view where they might have issues, but I think they can deal with stuff because, look, that's not really Carnage, but like, there's stuff you can do. I don't know. I'm sure they could figure it out. Either way, Carnage was always one of the big bad. Like, if you played the games in the 90s, like you played the SNES games, you saw that there, like Maximum Carnage. That was like one of the hardest games to play as a little kid. On the SNES or the Genesis. Like Maximum Carnage, getting to Carnage was like nearly impossible. So hard to beat the symbiotes. But I think Carnage is one of the most well-known villains and definitely will make it into Marvel Rivals at some point. I don't need them to rush the character. And I'm cool if they add the other symbiotes later as well. But I just think, like, one of the most iconic villains and coolest characters in all of Marvel, you gotta add me some Carnage. Now, down the Spider-Man line. This is where I'm probably gonna get some hate. Leave me your comments down below, please. Also, here's a little Iceman telling you, smash that subscribe button. We missed it earlier during the Iceman post. But please, make sure if you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. But I had to leave that before this because I know I'm going to get hate on this. Under a top 10, this isn't going to be everybody's favorite. But the Shocker. The Shocker from... Now, hear me out. I don't want to hear about the 20 other Spider-Man villains or heroes that should be coming, like Miles Morales or anything else that should be Spider-Gwen, whatever else. You want to go into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 2099, all the different variations of Spider-Man or all the different things. You can give costumes to Spider-Man. You don't always need a new character. Just going to throw that out there. You can give skins. They will make money from them. You don't necessarily need a whole new character for those characters. Just throwing that out there. Please don't hate the messenger. Just throwing out my opinion. But Shocker, again, 90s cartoon kid. He didn't even exist, I don't think, in the comics before the show, or maybe he did briefly. Like, he came into it. Like, Shocker was one badass character in the 90s cartoon. One thing that you'll need to know, again, I know Electro exists. I didn't put Electro on this list. Again, there's a reason. The movies ruined Electro for me. I'm sorry I said it. I didn't like Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield. I know he had some redemption in the most recent Spider-Man movie. Still, Electro, not doing it for me. Shocker would work very, very well as a sniper character. You can have him as a DPS. You can have him as again, the same way we have characters like Starlord that have the pew pew pews, just the guns. You can easily have a Shocker in that role that can maybe do longer range, whatever, more damage up close, whatever. But he's got the Shocker boosh, boosh, boosh out of his fists. I would like to see Shocker get some redemption because I feel like the movies never did him justice. I thought he was a cool, fun character in the Venom arc of the old 90s. Spider-Man cartoon, didn't really follow this Spider-Man cartoon or didn't really think he was as good. Okay, totally wrong. He was not made in any way, shape, or form for the 90s cartoon. I thought he was. I honestly thought he was made for that cartoon. Because they did make some characters, I think, like the Hobgoblin. I think the Hobgoblin was made for that show. Again, could be wrong on that too. The 90s cartoon, I just remember they didn't have access to all the villains. So So they couldn't even use Electro. That's why they used Shocker. So I thought Shocker was actually used not from the comics. Because I thought they just didn't have access to certain comic book characters. So clearly I can see by this comic here, I was wrong about that. Either way, Shocker to me, maybe not in this attire, but as well, I don't want to get canceled, but like some of the attires, I don't know. I think he looked pretty cool as a kid. I thought he had cool powers as a kid. I thought his Shocker abilities, like you can see some of the toys they made for him. I don't know. I thought he was a really cool character as a kid. Again, I feel like I'm gonna get hate for this pick. He was in one of the coolest arcs of the 90s cartoon when Spider-Man got the symbiote. And I just feel like he never got the full justice he deserved because I thought he was such a badass character. Me personally. But again, you may differ. But my very final pick from this list, again, getting out of the X-Men universe, getting out of the Spider-Verse, we're going into the Marvel-verse, and one of the strongest beings in all of Marvel, and one of the coolest heroes, in my opinion, someone I really enjoyed the comics of when I was a kid. Probably some personal bias here, but the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer was one of Marvel's coolest characters growing up. I absolutely fell in love with him. His comics were a little bit, I don't know, maybe in the earlier days, maybe a little bit more adult themed. I do believe I had a comic that I had gotten from when I was a kid, from maybe the 70s or something, or 70s or 80s. But the Silver Surfer comic book had nudity in it. And it was like from all these bone death characters, like Skeletors coming back to life. And they were all over. And there was like this one woman, and he just had a brief little like boob exposure or something like that. And it was just so crazy to me as a kid. Like my grandpa gave me like a whole stack, a box full of like old comics and stuff. And Silver Surfer was like this cool one where I had some from the 70s, some from or maybe the 80s or whatever, some from the 90s and some more recent. And like the Silver Surfer and like one of these really old comics had, and for me at that time as a kid, that was like a huge deal. There was like a boob, like, and as this girl was getting destroyed by all these like Skeletor looking things. That always stood out for me where I was like, oh, this is like one of the more adult heroes of the franchise. Like I know we have Deadpool now. He's more your R-rated character and stuff. But like these comics they went crazy back in the day. Again, I don't remember if it was a 70s or 80s comic that I had there. But the Silver Surfer always stood out for me as a kid. Probably from that one comic. That was probably like a big deal where I was like, I'm going to read all of these now. And it was the only one that ever had one single square that had any kind of nudity or anything like that in it. But this is something I don't need to see. I don't need to see you change Silver Surfer. Like, I mean, if you make a female Silver Surfer, I mean, I'm sure you could make her awesome. I don't think it really matters. I just hate that they're just going. I just hate that they just make original characters. You don't need to change active characters that are like a thing if you're going to make them. Just make an original character. Like, if you're going to make this Silver Surfer or make Silver Surfer a woman in this movie, maybe still leave the window open to still have, like, the regular Silver Surfer in it. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm the only one who cares about that stuff. But, like, I had these toys growing up. Like, these, I think I actually might have had this specific Silver Surfer toy. Absolutely super cool. Silver Surfer, if you're not familiar, he was created or made a deal with Galactus on his planet. So Galactus wouldn't, like, destroy his planet. and he goes around like scouting planets for Galactus to destroy, but then he becomes a hero, and like there's a whole arc, but like he has some of like Galactus' powers. Like he's like I would say Silver Surfer is probably like stronger than all of the X-Men, like across the board. Like he's probably one of the strongest characters in all of Marvel. Again, I don't know how familiar any of you might be with the Silver Surfer, but again, I there was a short-lived '90s TV series that again I grew up with, and I'd already had the comics before that. I didn't feel like the cartoon really did the show justice. He in some pictures looks kind of like Iceman to me. Probably why I like them both. I thought their character design, like if you look at this image, very, very, very cool. And I love that he rode a surfboard. But when you see him holding something like this looks like Iceman holding like an ice sword, but it's still the Silver Surfer. But I don't know. I always absolutely loved the Silver Surfer. I didn't think the movies did him justice at all. I thought the cartoons were very cool. And the comic books, like I thought he looked cool. I thought the whole idea of like him being on like surfing through the skies, through the cosmic wonders. I don't know, man. I just thought this was like as a kid growing up, one of the coolest characters ever. And then he had like these cosmic superpowers, right? Like he was like super, super powerful, probably more powerful than any Omega level mutant. And like the guy just traveled across the universe on a surfboard. It was cool when he was a hero, but like again, he started out as a villain and was part of like like helping Galactus find planets to devour. But Silver Surfer, one of the original Marvel characters, one of the coolest Marvel characters. I don't know how to stress to you how badly they did my man the Silver Surfer in that Fantastic Four movie. Like they did not do this man any kind of justice. Even in the cartoon they had in the 90s. I know they had a separate one I think in the 80s, but the one they had in the 90s that lasted I think a whole season, it didn't do him justice. It wasn't good. They didn't have good voice actors. Nothing about it was great. But the comics, this was actually one of the few guys actually followed from the comics, had some artwork and some toys and stuff. Silver Surfer was just badass. Just trust me. Most people don't know enough about the Silver Surfer, but he was probably one of the coolest characters in all of Marvel. Again, when done right. So I would love to see him. I would absolutely, and he could rival the power of Thanos easily. But I would love to see him in this game as a cool flying character on a surfboard. Who wouldn't want a character on a surfboard? Like I'm just telling you right now. Who wouldn't? Who doesn't want to play with a character on a surfboard? Look how fun Ironman was to play when he was, when you're up above and being able to deal damage to everybody from up above. I just think having a character like Silver Surfer on a surfboard all the time, boy, I'm telling you, that's doing it for me. I really hope they add him. Might actually go up to my top 3 or 4 wanted characters because like so few people really know much about the Silver Surfer beyond that movie we had in the in the Fantastic Four movie. They didn't really do him justice there. They didn't really give us enough about them. Again, the cartoons in the 90s weren't really great about him, but like the comics were really cool. And so Silver Surfer, again, only would probably climb my list to like my top 3 just because I feel like so few people really know much about him. And he's not really a super popular Marvel character in today's landscape. But anyways, dubious ones, this video went way longer than it needed to be. I definitely want to hear your feedback in the comments down below. Who are your favorite characters that are not in Marvel Rivals that you want to see come to this game. Like, seriously, I want to know, who are your top 5 characters? Leave in the comments down below. If you have a top 5 list, even if you only have 1 or 2 characters you want to see, let me know in the comments down below. Who do you want to see that we don't have in Marvel Rivals yet? And who would you like to come? And if you want to go even crazier and give me more information, let me know what type of character you want to see them as. Would you like them as a tank? Would you like them as a healer? Would you like them as a DPS? Would you like them as some sort of hybrid? I want to know. And if you're super, super crazy, let me know the team ups with active characters that are in the game, or other characters you'd like to see come to the game, and what kind of cool team up abilities would they have. Let me know. I'm curious, but this was my top 10. I hope you enjoyed. Dubious ones, that's going to do it for this one. And again, as always, if you're new to the channel, please smash that subscribe button, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, deuces. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.